All right, let's dive into this. Mobility exercises. We've got articles, research, the whole shebang.
Mhm.
And, what's really interesting to me is this idea that it's not about becoming some kind of pretzel, right?
Right.
It's about, like, helping you move better in everyday life, feel better,
Yeah.
and maybe even, boost your performance a little bit, whether
Yeah.
you're, hitting the gym hard or just trying to get through the day.
Exactly. And it's funny, we often use mobility and flexibility as if they're the same thing,
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that.
but they're not quite the same. Flexibility, think of it like stretching a rubber band. It's just how far can that muscle lengthen? But mobility, that's about how freely a joint can move.
So it's about more than just how far you can stretch a muscle.
Yeah, it's like the whole system. You need strength, control,
Yeah.
and flexibility all working together.
So, like, it's not just touching your toes. It's being able to squat down or reach up
Yeah.
without feeling like something's going to, like, snap.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about owning your body's movement.
Yeah.
And there's a real science to this. I mean, one of the articles we've got here quotes this Dr. Babenko.
Yeah.
He's a doctor of physical therapy. And he says a lot of the injuries he sees, like, it all boils down to people not having that full range of motion.
It makes you think, right? Like, our bodies are designed to move in certain ways. And when we can't, things start to go wrong.
Yeah.
But, okay, it's not all doom and gloom. There are definitely benefits to improving mobility, right?
Absolutely.
Beyond just, like, not getting hurt.
Yeah. Increased range of motion is probably the most obvious one.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. Being able to just bend over and pick something up without, like, groaning or reaching for that high shelf without.
Without pulling a muscle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I bet that translates to, like, athletic performance, too.
Oh, absolutely.
If your body's moving the way it's supposed to, you're going to be faster, more agile, just all around more powerful.
Right, because you're not fighting against yourself.
Exactly. One of the articles even talks about how mobility training helps athletes get the best mechanics for their sport.
I was going to say, that makes a lot of sense.
And, it's not just for the pros.
Right.
Anyone who's, like, running, swimming, hiking, even gardening, all that stuff, you benefit from having that, like, fluid, unrestricted movement.
So less pain, better movement, maybe even better at your favorite activities. I'm starting to see why this is a whole deep dive. But, okay, how do we actually do this? What are the, like, magic exercises?
Well, the magic's in the moving, not just the stretching.
Yeah.
Think like dynamic stretches, controlled rotations. Sometimes you even use weights or resistance bands.
So it's not about holding a stretch for 30 seconds and calling it a day.
No.
You're actually moving your body through these ranges of motion.
Exactly. And there are different exercises for, different parts of the body.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But before we get into specifics, maybe we should break down some of the bigger benefits of this, like really highlight them.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, so we've touched on increased range of motion.
Right.
But, like, what else are we talking about here? What should people be looking for when they're trying to improve their mobility?
Well, for one, injury prevention is huge.
Right.
If your joints can move freely, they're way less likely to get strained or, injured. That same doctor, Dr. Babenko,
Yeah.
he actually uses the word longevity.
Wow.
He's talking about, like, it's not just about avoiding a pulled muscle today. It's about keeping your body healthy for, years to come.
It's almost like investing in your future physical well-being.
Exactly. And that well-being includes feeling less pain. Think about it. When your muscles, your joints, all that can move the way they should.
There's less tension, less strain.
Exactly. So less pain, especially in those spots we all struggle with, like the neck, shoulders, back. One article even talked about using mobility exercises to undo the damage from the day.
I like that, like
Yeah.
giving your body a little TLC. Okay, but what about mobility and strength training?
Yeah.
One of the articles mentioned that, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah, it's not about being super bendy. It's about being able to move through those exercises correctly.
Okay.
So let's say you're doing a squat. If your hips are mobile, you can get deeper into that squat, which means more muscle fibers are working.
Oh, interesting.
And that means more potential for gains.
It's like getting more out of your workout.
Exactly.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And then there's posture.
Right.
When everything's balanced and moving freely, your body just naturally aligns better.
So no more hunching over the computer.
Mhm.
I'm sold.
Aha!
Okay, I'm officially convinced mobility is important. But let's get to the actual exercises. Like, what are we doing?
All right, well, let's start with something that's often overlooked, ankle mobility.
Okay.
It's super important for, well, pretty much everything. Walking, running, and yeah, even squatting properly.
I can see how that would be important.
Yeah, if your ankles are stiff, it throws everything off.
So what do we do?
Simple things like calf raises, ankle circles, those can make a big difference.
Okay.
Calf raises work those muscles in the back of your lower leg, and ankle circles loosen up the joint itself.
And what happens if we just, like, ignore our ankles? One of the
Wow.
articles mentioned something about posture and even injuries.
Right, it's all connected.
Oh, no.
When your ankles are stiff, your body has to compensate, right?
Yeah.
So you might start walking differently, and that can lead to like knee pain, hip pain, even back pain.
Wow, that's a domino effect I want to avoid.
Right.
Okay, so we've loosened up those ankles. What's next?
Let's move up to another problem area for a lot of people, the hips.
Uh-oh, I can already feel it.
Tight hips, they can cause all sorts of issues. Lower back pain, trouble with movements like squats and lunges.
Yeah, most of us have felt that tightness at some point.
Exactly.
So what are some good mobility exercises for the hips?
There are two classics that target different aspects of hip mobility.
Okay.
Pigeon pose and the butterfly stretch.
Okay, I've heard of those.
Pigeon pose, that's all about external rotation. It helps open up the front of the hips. And then the butterfly stretch that works on internal rotation, stretches the inner thighs.
And these aren't just for, like, yoga classes, right?
Yeah.
Anyone can benefit from these.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good.
It's all about just incorporating them and seeing how they feel.
All right, let's keep moving up the body. What about our spines?
Ah, the spine.
Yeah.
Keeping that mobile is essential for overall flexibility and back health.
I mean, bending, twisting, reaching, all that good stuff depends on a healthy spine, right?
Exactly.
So, no more creaking when I try to tie my shoes.
Hopefully not.
What's a good exercise for the spine?
The spine windmill is a good one. It's pretty simple but effective.
Okay.
It targets both extension and lateral flexion in the spine. It's like a gentle wake-up call for your back.
I can picture it. Okay, now let's talk about shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
I know I personally struggle with that.
Shoulder mobility is so important, especially for any overhead movements. And tight shoulders, well, they can lead to pain and all sorts of discomfort, especially if you're like at a desk all day or on your phone.
That's me. What can we do?
The shoulder pass-through is a great one.
Okay.
You can just use your body weight, or you can add a band or stick for more of a challenge.
Okay.
It helps with range of motion, and it also strengthens the shoulder muscles.
I'm definitely going to try that later. I feel like I need that after all the computer slouching I do.
Yeah.
Speaking of slouching, what about neck mobility? We all spend way too much time looking down at our phones.
Right. It's so important for good posture and for reducing tension in your neck, shoulders, even your upper back.
Okay.
A simple exercise that can help a lot is the neck half circle.
So just slowly moving your head in a half circle.
Exactly. It's just a gentle way to move that cervical spine through its full range of motion.
Yeah.
Just remember to go slow and controlled so you don't strain anything.
Okay, noted. I want to touch on one more exercise before we move on.
Yeah.
It caught my eye in the articles.
Yeah.
The single leg deadlift to knee drive.
Ah, yes.
That sounds like it works. Like everything.
It does. It's challenging, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's great for both mobility and stability. You'll feel it working,
Yeah.
and it engages like multiple muscle groups.
They mentioned a balance element too.
Yeah, you'll be working on balance, coordination, all those stabilizing muscles, and improving mobility in both the upper and lower body.
It's a lot packed into one exercise.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about some exercises that might sound a little intimidating, especially if you're just getting started.
Right.
What about people who are new to this?
Right.
Are there beginner-friendly options?
Of course.
Okay, good.
You don't have to be a gymnast to benefit from mobility work. Simple things like neck circles, shoulder pass-throughs. You can use a band or stick for those if you need to.
Okay.
Thoracic spine rotations, the cat-cow stretch. Even just arm circles can make a big difference.
I love that those are all things you can do, like, at home, even if you just have a few minutes.
Exactly. It's all about making small, consistent steps.
Yeah.
But for those who are ready to, level up, we'll get into some more advanced techniques in the next part.
I'm ready for it. But before we jump to part 2, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. Like, just take a moment to tune in to your body. What feels the tightest right now?
Yeah.
Pick one of the exercises we talked about and try it out. Even a few minutes can make a difference.
That's a great suggestion. We'll be back soon to explore those advanced techniques and talk about how to actually make this a part of your routine.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Welcome back to our Mobility Deep Dive. Part 1. We covered a lot,
Yeah, we did.
but we're just getting started, ready to level up.
Absolutely.
Okay. One of the things that, I don't know, kind of caught my attention in the articles was this whole concept of nerve flossing.
Mm.
It sounds a little, uh,
Intimidating.
yeah, a little bit like something you'd hear at the doctor's office.
I know, right?
But it's actually about like specific movements to help mobilize your nerves.
Yeah, it's about creating space for those nerves to move freely.
So it's not just stretching the muscles, it's about the nerves too.
Exactly. One article even talked about like the sciatic nerve,
Oof.
that big one that runs from your lower back all the way down your legs.
Right.
If that gets compressed or irritated, it can cause a lot of pain.
Yeah. I've heard of sciatica. It's not fun.
No, it's not. And regular stretching won't really fix that.
So nerve flossing can help with that.
Exactly. It's like untangling a knot in your nervous system.
It's a good visual. Dr. Babenko, the physical therapist we mentioned before, he actually highlighted this sciatic nerve flossing.
Yeah,
He said it can be really helpful for runners and skiers.
that makes sense. Those activities put a lot of stress on that nerve.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, incorporating some nerve flossing could be really helpful for them.
Okay, nerve flossing is definitely on my to-learn list.
Good.
What about those controlled articular rotations? CARs, yeah. We touched on those in part 1. They sound pretty intense.
They might sound technical, but they're really not that bad. It's all about improving joint mobility and control.
Okay.
So imagine you take a joint, like your shoulder, and you slowly rotate it through its full range of motion.
Like making circles.
Exactly. Nice smooth circles. You're basically waking up those joints, working through any stiffness.
So it's not about speed or momentum, it's about being controlled.
Precisely. You're being deliberate, feeling for any restrictions, and just gently working through them. And you can do CARs on pretty much any joint.
Oh, wow.
Shoulders, hips, knees, ankles, even your wrists.
I'm already thinking about doing CARs for my wrists before I sit down to work.
Good idea.
Okay, let's move on to something that sounds a little more familiar. Loaded mobility.
Ah, yes. Loaded mobility is basically adding weight to your mobility exercises.
So making them harder.
In a way, yes. It's a great way to challenge those muscles and improve both strength and flexibility at the same time. One of the articles used the example of holding a goblet squat.
Right.
You're holding a weight while you're in that deep squat position, so you're working those muscles in a whole new way.
So like taking those basic exercises we talked about in part 1 and just like upping the ante.
Exactly. And that added resistance can actually help you get deeper into the stretch.
Interesting. Okay, for the adventurous types out there, let's talk about eccentric stretching. What is that exactly?
So eccentric stretching focuses on the lengthening part of a muscle contraction.
Okay.
Imagine you're doing a calf raise.
Right, going up on your toes.
Exactly. And then you slowly lower your heel back down, controlling that descent. That slow lowering is the eccentric part.
So it's about resisting the stretch.
Yes, you're resisting gravity as that muscle lengthens. And that can actually lead to greater flexibility gains compared to just holding a stretch.
Wow. Okay.
But it's worth noting that eccentric stretching is a bit more advanced. You need to have good control and body awareness to do it safely.
That makes sense. It's like anything, you need to master the basics before you move on to the harder stuff.
Exactly. And this brings up an important point. Mobility training is a journey.
Oh.
It's not about, reaching some end goal and then stopping. It's about constantly exploring and expanding what your body can do.
I like that. It's not about being perfect. It's about the process.
Exactly. And the rewards are worth it.
Yeah.
Less pain, better posture, more energy, even just feeling more confident in your own body.
It's like you're becoming more in tune with yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, as we wrap up part 2 here, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from this exploration of these advanced techniques?
I think the main thing is that mobility training is about self-discovery.
Okay.
It's about making those small efforts, listening to your body, and celebrating what you're capable of. And we'll continue that in part 3, where we'll talk about how to actually incorporate all this into your routine.
Sounds good. I'm ready for part 3.
Me too.
Okay, welcome back to our final part of this mobility deep dive. We've learned what mobility is. We've explored some seriously cool techniques. But now, how do we actually make this a part of our lives?
Yeah, that's the key, right?
It's one thing to talk about it, but how do we actually do it?
Well, the first step is actually pretty simple. You got to assess where you're at right now.
Okay, before we even think about pigeon poses and nerve flossing and all that.
Exactly. Figure out where you're feeling tight, what movements feel restricted.
So it's like knowing your starting point before you can make a plan.
Exactly. It's like going on a road trip. Got to know where you are before you can map out the route.
Right. And how do we do that? How do we assess our mobility?
There are some easy ways, like can you touch your toes?
Okay.
How deep can you squat? Can you reach overhead without feeling any pinching or pain? The simple things like that.
So those basic movements can give us a sense of, like, where we need to focus.
Exactly. Once you have a better idea of your current mobility, then you can start tailoring your approach.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say I do this assessment and I realize, oh man, my hips and shoulders are super tight. What's next?
That's where those specific exercises come in. Remember we talked about the pigeon pose and the butterfly stretch for hips
Yeah.
and shoulder pass-throughs and cars for the shoulders?
Right.
Those would be great places to start.
And it's all about consistency, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't just do one pigeon pose and expect miracles.
You got it. One article recommended aiming for like 3 or 4 sessions of mobility work per week.
Okay.
But remember, consistency doesn't mean pushing yourself to the point of pain. It's about finding a routine that you can actually stick with.
Right. So it's more like building a habit than like cramming for a test.
Exactly. Think of it like building a house. You need a strong foundation before you can start adding the walls and the roof.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Start with a few basic exercises done consistently, and you'll build that mobility foundation.
Now, what about people who maybe have some like pre-existing injuries or conditions?
Yeah.
Is it safe for them to do all these exercises?
That's a great question. Honestly, it's always best to check with a physical therapist or doctor if you have any concerns.
Okay.
They can help you figure out what's safe and effective for you.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Nope, not at all. Everyone's body is different, and what works for one person might not work for another. Listening to your body and getting professional guidance when you need it, that's super important.
Makes sense. Okay, I know a lot of people are wondering, like, how long does it actually take to see results from all this? Is there a quick fix?
Well, unfortunately, there's no magic bullet when it comes to mobility.
Yeah, figures.
Just like any aspect of fitness, it takes time, consistency, and patience.
But we're not talking, like, years of dedicated stretching.
No. The good news is you often start feeling a difference pretty quickly, even after just a few sessions.
Oh, okay.
You might notice you can move more freely, or maybe your pain has decreased. You just feel more comfortable in your body.
That's encouraging. So it's about celebrating those small wins and trusting the process.
Exactly. Don't get discouraged if you don't see huge changes right away. Small, consistent effort. That's what gets results over time.
Well, I think this has been a really great overview of mobility. We've learned why it's important, what it is, and how to make it a part of our lives.
It has.
And, you know, the big takeaway for me is it's not just about being flexible.
Right.
It's about strength, it's about control, and it's about feeling good in your own body.
Yeah.
Like being able to move through life with ease and confidence.
Absolutely. And that's something anyone can benefit from, no matter your age or fitness level.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's our final takeaway for you. Make time for mobility.
Yes.
Whether it's just a few minutes each day or dedicated sessions a few times a week, those consistent efforts, they'll make a difference.
It's an investment in your health that'll keep you moving for years to come.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of mobility exercises. We'll catch you on the next one.